display namanya. Apa sih gue? Media window capture kok dipilih sing Zoom meeting gini
window capture source window capture
kantin masih
bisa sidang harus apa mas?
Wingi mas kan muni lah paparannya nanti hah? Iya
tak Asia
mau parani nanti? Mau parani nanti?
namanya keplay pom terus dari mau bayang mau jadi sampai dengan bisa nangis itu mau bayang deh bisa barang mas sulit
sorry Pak Riki itu siapa? Terus ini nggak ada
Cetan mas tak kini kata-kata
hari ini.
Pak kasih ngechat kayak kasusnya Bu Ika ini. Iya.
Halo Pinot.
Halo Pinot. Oh iya.
Iki guru di admit kabeh ta iki. Enggak reva enggak?
Belum.
Enggak.
Belum.
Oh. Lah aku takut reva enggak dijawab tapi.
Tak wakili dulu.
paling share screen dhewe mbak iya tak kirim tadi nek ngatur tulisan ini ya
Gimana sih Pak?
OBS.
BS
Apa coba? Aman ya?
enggak lah ngene iki lho mas mau bocor persis ngene
Hello, Bal.
Hi, Nini. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning in Nepal and good afternoon in Singapore.
Is it still morning in Nepal?
Yes, it's 11:44.
Oh, 11.
So what time is it now in Indonesia? What time is it now?
Yeah, it should have been now, but we're still waiting for, I believe, like somebody will open the ceremony. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So important person. In
Yeah.
Nepal we call chief guest, like yeah.
Who will open the ceremony, Pak Ulhak or Pak Minto? All right, Bal, feel free to share the link to your students.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have attention, please? Our event is going to begin in 10 minutes. Please have a nice seat and back to your position. Also, we'll kindly remind you to keep your microphone muted. Thank you.
A campus from the best city
Recording
in
in
Indonesia,
progress.
a city with a long history of struggle and heroism. Welcome to Universitas Negeri Surabaya, a university with superior accreditation. Founded in 1964 as a teaching institute for education under the name IKIP Surabaya, institute that carries the mandate as university that produces educators. Currently, UNESA, established as a center for education development, preservation of traditional arts, sports science,
and inclusive services for people with disabilities. Growing to be a leading university, UNESA now manages 7 faculties consisting of 64 undergraduate study programs, 10 vocational programs, and 31 postgraduate study programs. The main campus is located in Lidawetan, Surabaya with 7 main buildings. They are Rectorate Building, Board of Learning Development and Quality Assurance Building, and 3 faculty buildings including Faculty of Science Education, Faculty of Language and Art, Faculty of Sports Science, as well as postgraduate programs. And here is the oldest campus, Ketintang area. There are 4 faculty buildings and 1 vocational program building that includes Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, Faculty of Engineering, Faculty of Economics and Business, Faculty of Social Sciences and Law, and vocational programs. Managing 2 fields of study, education-based and non-educational study programs, UNESA is committed to improving the quality of education, fostering scientific traditions in research, promoting the spirit of community service, collaborating with stakeholders, and performing excellent, transparent, and accountable services. Reaching independent autonomic higher studies, welcoming the next step of UNESA as a legal entity higher education institution.
Selamat datang di Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Kami dengan bangganya mengajak Anda untuk lebih dekat dan mengenal tentang UNESA. Kami terus berkomitmen tidak hanya menyelenggarakan pendidikan terbaik bagi tenaga pendidik profesional masa depan, juga sangat berfokus untuk menciptakan lulusan yang berkarakter, tangguh, kreatif, inovatif, dan mampu berkolaborasi pada siapapun, berbudaya yang humanis dengan spesifikasi yang unggul dalam hal seni, olahraga, dan pendidikan disabilitas yang komprehensif.
Education is not only the key of our existence, but also the spirit of struggle of UNESA. Becoming one of the campuses that organize teacher professional education programs that produce professional educators, UNESA is committed to organizing various empowerment programs as a stimulus to develop faculty members and students, research development, and innovative product as the solution to problems in the society. UNESA, House of the Champions. A supportive ecosystem in producing competitive and well-qualified human resources with global perspective to compete on both national and international levels. In order to create a healthy learning ecosystem, UNESA continue to provide the best service with various quality facilities, national or international scale in the field of education, science, and sports. UNESA continuously commit to provide an outstanding service and friendly for people with disabilities. Supported with adequate facilities and infrastructure, a competitive environment, and a campus. Futsal International Sports Arena, Container Students Dormitory, Sports Center, Language Center, Geraha UNESA, Student Activity Center, Jogging Track, Equestrian Field, International Basketball Arena, Student Activity Units, Art Development, Character and Personality Building, Sports, Outdoor Activities.
UNESA, 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 UNESA,
UNESA.
UNESA, satu langkah di depan.
Excellencies, distinguished speakers, guests, and all of the participants, we would like to inform you that the international webinar with the theme Innovative Learning based on STEAM approach to develop 21st century skill in elementary school students will begin now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you. Good afternoon to all of our honorable and amazing participants, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I can see that we have so many guests from across the country, so hopefully the video that we have just watched before will make it easier for us to get to know about State University of Surabaya, aka UNESA, a little bit better, which is one of the most prestigious university in Indonesia. Also, there is a teaser video of SCOFES, and for your information, this webinar is also the part of SCOFES, which is the big event that is held by Primary Teacher Education Student Association. Before we proceed further, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to, first, Excellency, the Rector of State University of Surabaya, Professor Dr. Nur Hasan, Excellency, the Dean of the Faculty of Education, State University of Surabaya, Dr. Andes Muhammad Nur Salim, Master of Science. Excellency, the Head of Department Primary Teacher Education, State University of Surabaya, Dr. Andes Minto Hari, MPD. Excellency, Professor Balchandra Lauta, as the speakers and the Associate Professor of Mathematics Education, Kathmandu University, Nepal. And also, Mr. Assistant Prof. Binod Prasad Pant, as the speakers and acting head of STEAM Education Department, Kathmandu University, Nepal. Excellency, Assistant Professor Ika Rahmawati, SSI MPD, as the speaker and the lecturer of Primary Teacher School Education, State University of Surabaya. Honorable Mr. Ricky Setiawan, SPD, Master of Education, as the moderator and the lecturer of Primary Teacher School Education, State University of Surabaya. And of course, guest delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as our audience today. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Deni Zakia Zamania, and I am your Master of Ceremony today. But first of all, I would like to say that it's such an honor and I'm very delighted to be among all of you right here, and welcome to International webinar with the theme Innovative Learning based on STEAM approach to develop 21st century skill in elementary school students. Today, Friday, September the 9th, 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, over these few minutes, this meeting is going to provide you plenty opportunities to discuss, share knowledge and insight about innovative learning based on STEAM approach to develop 21st century skill in elementary school students that will be discussed in detail by our three outstanding speakers. In this occasion, let me deliver the structure of the event today. The first agenda is opening ceremony. The second agenda is welcoming speech from Revangga Pahlawan as the Chief Executive of this international webinar, and continued by the welcoming and opening speech from Mr. Nur Salim as the Dean of Faculty of Education, State University of Surabaya. The fourth until the fifth agenda is the main session. It is the presentation from our distinguished speaker, Professor Balchandra Lauta, as the Associate Professor of Mathematics Education, Kathmandu University, and then Mr. Assistant Professor Binod Prasad Pant as the Acting Head of STEAM Education Department, Kathmandu University, and also from Assistant Professor Ika Rahmawati, SSI MPD, as the Lecturer of Primary Teacher School Education, State University of Surabaya. And each presentation has 45 minutes. Then, at the end of presentation, it will be continued by question and answer session for 15 minutes on each session. And the last agenda is closing ceremony. Therefore, please follow our event till the end. Before we start our agenda, please let me explain a little bit about the webinar rules, which you can also read on the screen. But right now, I just want to highlight one thing. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep yourself muted unless speaking in conversation to reduce background noises. And when you do, please speak clear and direct so everyone in this room can hear you. If anyone wants to contribute, please, but it is not your turn, or the host hasn't allowed you to turn on your microphone, we recommend you to use the chat feature. Also, I would like to remind each and every one of you to fill out the attendance and evaluation form, so that way you can get your e-certificate as soon as we finish this event. Just click the link on the chat feature and the committees will send you in a few minutes. Farewell. Honorable distinguished speaker, participants, ladies and gentlemen, as our opening ceremony today, I would like to invite everyone to sing Indonesian national anthem, Indonesia Raya, and State University Surabaya March Song. For all participants who are able to stand up, please stand up, face toward the music, and pay your respect. Everyone may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the next agenda. Please allow me to invite Revangga Pahlawan. For Revangga Pahlawan, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to everyone for participation on this event. It is such as an honor for me to speak on behalf of the committee as a chief executive. I'm so delightful to welcome each and all of you. Before starting my speech, I would like to express my honor to the great people who helped us make this international webinar come true. I will give my honor to our Excellency Director of State University of Surabaya, Professor Dr. Nur Hasan, Excellency the Dean of the Faculty of Education, State University of Surabaya, Dr. Andes Muhammad Nur Salim, Master of Science, Excellency the Head of Department Primary Teacher Education, State University of Surabaya, Dr. Andes Mintahari, MPD, Excellency Professor Bal Chandra Latil, as the speakers, and the Associate Professor of Mathematics Education, Kathmandu University, Nepal. Excellency Mr. Assistant Professor Binat Praset Pan, as the speakers, and the Assistant Professor and Acting Head of STEAM Education Department, Kathmandu University. Excellency Mrs. Assistant Professor Ika Rahmawati, SSI, MPD, as the speakers and the lecturer of Primary Teacher School Education, State University of Surabaya. Honorable Mr. Ricky Setiawan, SPD, Master of Education, as the moderator and the lecturer of Primary Teacher School Education, State University of Negeri Surabaya. And of course, wonderful audience for today international webinar. Once again, thank you so much for our remarkable speakers for today, and also thank you so much for 200 and more audience who are joining us together on this event. I hope this event will make you get more insight about education and will develop your skill and knowledge about teaching. I hope you will going to be one of the wonderful teacher who's going to make our future of education become brightful. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the wonderful welcoming speech for Revangga Palawan. For the next speech, I would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Nur Salim as the Dean of Faculty of Education to give his welcoming and opening speech. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Muhammad Nur Salim.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to each and every one of you for being here today at this wonderful place. It's such an honor for me to speak on behalf of the university. Let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to all speakers, lecturers, and also our beloved audience of the international webinar. With a time, innovative learning based on STEAM approach to develop 21st century skill in elementary school students. Before we get started, I would like to express my appreciation to the great people who generously help us make this seminar come true. Excellency Director of Universitas Negeri Surabaya, Profesor Dr. Nur Hasan, Cak Hasan, Excellency the Head of Department Primary Teacher Education, UNESA, DRS Mintohari MPD, Excellency Professor Balchandra Luitu as speaker, and the Associate Professor of Mathematics Education, Kathmandu University, Excellency Mr. Assistant Professor Pinat Prasad Pan as the speaker, and the Assistant Professor and Acting Head of STEAM Education Department, Kathmandu University, Excellency Ika Rahmawati as SEMPD as the speaker, and the lecturer of primary teacher, school education, State University of Surabaya, Honorable Master Riki Setiawan, SPD MPD, as a moderator, and the lecturer of primary teacher, school education, State University of Surabaya, and cause and excellency and wonderful audience for today's webinar. In today's webinar, we would learn how the teacher should find an innovative way for education in 21st century to improve their skill about teaching. I hope today's webinar could develop your teaching skill in today's era for the bright future of education. This webinar was organized by Primary Teacher Education Department and has gathered around 200 and more participants from within the century and from abroad. I hope this webinar can provide useful things for participants and committees, also strengthen the good relations between our major and institution in the international fields. I would also like to thanks to our three outstanding and remarkable speakers, Mr. Pinan Pang, Mr. Balchandra Luitel, and Mrs. Ika Rahmawati, who will deliver new knowledge to us. And for all of the distinguished audience, welcome to our webinar. Hopefully, you can utilize this time by gathering knowledge as many as possible. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Before I hand over it to Mr. Sinta, our today's MC, on behalf of Universitas Negeri Surabaya, I am officially open this international webinar entitled Innovative Learning based on STEAM approach to develop 21st century skill in elementary school students. Thank you very much. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, thank you for the welcoming speech and the opening remark for Mr. Muhammad Nur Salim. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the main session, let's start this event by praying first. So this event will be held today will run well without any obstacle at all. Pray based on individual belief begins. Prayers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to go to the main session, that is presentation by our amazing speaker that will be moderated by Mr. Riki Setiawan. But before, let us present the CV of our moderator today. So, as what we see on the screen, Mr. Ricky Setiawan was born on Medan, North Sumatra at December 16, 1987. He graduated from Open University, Bachelor of Education in Primary Education at 2012. Then he continued his master's degree in National Donghua University, Taiwan, and graduated in 2019. He worked as a teacher in Yuda University of Science and Technology, Taiwan, from 2019 till 2021. And now he is a lecturer in our beloved university, State University of Surabaya, and of course, with amazing international experiences and achievements. So, without waiting any longer for our amazing moderator, Mr. Ricky Setiawan, time is yours.
Thank you, Jenny, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the International webinars with the theme Innovative Learning Based on STEAM Approach to develop 21st century skills in elementary school students. It is such an honor for me for being the moderator of this international webinar. So we will start with the first presentation that will be presented by Professor Balchandra Luthal about STEAM philosophy. First, I would like to introduce to all participants about Professor Balchandra Luthal. So Professor Balchandra Luthal is a professor at Kathmandu University, Nepal. Educated in Nepal and Australia, Professor Luthal has been using Eastern wisdom traditions and Western-induced critical social theories to promote multiple forms of knowing and valuing in his pedagogical practice, such as conceptual, reflective, critical, and creative imaginative. He leads a transformative education research group in Nepal and is a vice chairperson of the International Transformative Educational Research Network, a consortium of transformative educational researchers working in different universities across Asia, Africa, and Oceania. One of the goals of Professor Luthal's pedagogical practice is to embrace transformative learning for promoting the agency of teacher educators and researchers who can work as change agents for sustainable futures. So, without waiting for any longer, we would like to welcome Professor Balchandra Luthal to give his presentations about STEAM philosophy for the next 45 minutes. So, Professor Balchandra Luthal, time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you please enable my screen sharing? I would like to start my slide from here. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. This will be helpful. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. So let me start my sharing. In my presentation today, in next about quarter to 1 hour, so I'll be talking about philosophies of STEAM education. This is not an exclusive list of philosophies. I will be talking about our journey as to how we conceived STEAM education in Nepal, especially at Kathmandu University. So when I talk about philosophies, I'm talking about myself as well. So there is an intimate relationship between these philosophies that I'm going to share about in a moment, and myself as a scholar, as a professor, as a practitioner. So in this presentation, I would be talking mainly about three major orientations. The first orientation that grew with myself, because I was prepared to become a math teacher. And especially math teachers, they sort of come up with the absolutist philosophical orientation as they grow as a teacher, as a student, and later as a teacher. And later, how I changed that, how I came to know how this absolutist view of knowledge is limiting, and we need another dimension, which we call fallibilist. So I talk about it and how we make a transition towards the foundation of social constructivism with several other orientations. In the second part of my talk today, I talk about the inevitability of arts. Why arts has been excluded in teaching and learning of science, mathematics, and even other subjects. And these two are very important foundations, the art-based orientation and the social constructivist orientation. They're very much useful to conceive STEAM education, because STEAM allows us to think across the board, not just within a subject discipline. This is necessary. These two orientations are necessary, but they are insufficient if you are to conceive STEAM education in a productive manner, in a manner that STEAM is not just a movement driven by economic rationalism. It's for well-being. It's for the well-being of planet, and it's for the well-being of people. So the third orientation, the third philosophical orientation, is very, very important, which we call the critical and transformative mode, or critical or transformative orientation, critical and transformative orientation of STEAM education. So let me begin. Okay, so when we talk about absolutist view of knowledge, we are very much, driven by these few attributes of the absolutist view of knowledge. Or knowledge is conceived to be certain and non-corrigible and uncertain, unchanging truth and independent of beliefs, values, and human-related factors. This is very much useful. This is very much used in STEM field, especially in mathematics and in other mathematics-related disciplines as well. So knowledge has to be certain, knowledge has to be non-corrigible. These two attributes give rise to so many disempowering beliefs about these disciplines: mathematics, science, technology, and engineering. So this view of knowledge has been present in other disciplines. I learned lately that this model, this absolutist model, actually comes into play when we develop curriculum, when we work in assessment as well. So this is one sort of view of knowledge. And this, this view of knowledge represent discipline or give rise to a particular disciplinary view. The first of which is axiomatic model, that there is a foundation, there are unseen axioms, and these unseen axioms remain true forever. That is the belief system behind the absolutist view of knowledge. And disciplines are accordingly formed. That there are assumptions, there are axioms, and which are true forever. This is driven by the authority model, because authority gives certain things and others follow. So authority follower model, and this is also called dualistic model. Then certain form of knowledge is always true, always, they remain always unchanging, and whereas the other form of knowledge are lesser, inferior. Pretty much view of Platonic sort of perspective of knowledge, okay? So let's think for a while, because, in our school system, probably the subject has presented in this format. There are certain assumptions, unchanging assumptions. We can't consider them as unchanging assumptions. And the model that we depict through our pedagogy is pretty much driven by the authority model. And we also have this dualist model in which certain things are true and certain things are false. It sounds to be counterintuitive. So how can we educate then? Do we not need a particular model, particular exams, particular assumptions? Do we not need authority? Do we not need yes versus no in certain occasions? I'm not saying that they are not needed, but to what extent? How much? What is the frequency? Perhaps the more we go to this direction, I think the less we become creative and imaginative if we are to think about education. So, and then next is, if we look for alternative, the alternative is something like this, that the fallibilist view. The idea of fallibilism is that there is a propensity of being wrong. There's a propensity of being incomplete or being limited. And probably it's also presented in many wisdom traditions that humans are always imperfect. So we strive for perfection. Perfection is not given. Perfection is created. Perfection is cultivated. If you see the religious traditions across the board, then we have to cultivate our perfection. Perfection is not given. So when we talk about the worldly knowledge, then worldly knowledge is changeable, whatever it is, whether it is mathematics or whether it is science or social studies or language-related subjects. The knowledge is ever changing. It is corrigible. We need to correct it time and again, depending upon the fact, depending upon the perception and interpretation of the knowledge. And our beliefs, values, and perceptions are central sort of tools in constructing, developing knowledge. Without beliefs, values, our own beliefs, values, without knowing our own beliefs, values, and perceptions, we are not able to develop or construct our understanding of our surrounding. And learning is about constructing understanding of our surroundings. And surroundings are not divided into subjects. They are driven by our curiosity, or divided by they are also based on certain questions and curiosities. Sorry about that. And objectivity is not also given. Objectivity is consensus. Objectivity is human product. We produce objectivity, and that objectivity may be true for certain times, and that can be revised again. If you see the history of science, there are different objectivities. Probably in the earlier days, the Newtonian view of science was the only view of science. Then came Einstein. Einstein introduced E is equals to mc squared. Then Elie Prigogine, challenged Newtonian view and said that the Newtonian view doesn't represent the reality that we work with. Okay? So objectivity is consensus, and it is changeable. So a fallibilistic perspective puts us this situation, puts this kind of cyclical sort of perspective. We might, if we propose a new idea, then there might be critiques, questions from member of community or practice. So this is normal. If you post something, if you submit an article to a journal, then you receive several critiques and comments, and we revise and we go for acceptance. This is simple basic model how fallibilistic model of knowledge production works. So this is how we sort of go into the cycle. And this happens in our pedagogical context as well. Although we might subscribe to absolutism, actually we cannot be absolutist. Probably God or Allah or Buddha can be absolutist. I mean, in that sense. But we live in a samsara and we are imperfect and we strive for perfection. So the very idea of absolutism doesn't represent our everyday reality as well. Because we strive for perfection, we are not perfect. We are fallible. We try to improve from our weaknesses. And so this is, and fallibilistic view regards disciplines as meaning systems. For example, we have one meaning system called mathematics, another meaning system can be art, another meaning system can be science. These meaning systems have different reference points, different tools, different techniques. For example, scientific tools might be different from the tools that we use language. But these are tools, these are human production. We should not barricade them. We should not create a kind of binary opposites like science versus arts, because they are tools and we can use these tools. We use tools which might seem to be adversary, which might be contradictory. So disciplines are considered to be meaning system because they start with inquiry, they start with question. If you look at historical development of different disciplines, they start with question, they start with inquiry. And we talk about, we talk with people, then dialogue also entails there. And these knowledge are grounded in context, grounded in place. We talk about place-based pedagogy many often. So learning is not kind of perfect revelation at once. It's coming to know. So we know by adaptation. We learn by adaptation. We experience, we adapt, we reconfigure, we reconstruct meaning. So this is the fallibilistic view of school discipline. So if we use school discipline as tentative sort of meaning system, then probably we begin to conceive STEAM education, that disciplines interact each other. Disciplines do not work in isolation in a productive manner. One informs the other. Art informs science and vice versa. So this gives rise then to the social constructivist view of knowledge that I presented earlier. This is pretty much driven by social constructivist model of knowledge production. So we rely on a relativistic view of reality, and we rely on more dialogic, communicative, conversational view of knowledge. So from that perspective, then we move into a interactive space of different models, different meaning system, which we call discipline as meaning system, not the strict boundary or silos of the meaning holder, of the meaning holding process. Sorry. So then we go to the next kind of orientation. The second orientation we call is the inevitability of arts. If you go back to the history of Western science, during the time during the time of Newton, there was another person in Italy, present-day Italy, Giambattista Vico. He sort of talked about poetic approach to science. So science and art would not be separated if Giambattista Vico's notion of science would be accepted. Probably it is because of the Newtonian model that we subscribed into science and science education, then art appeared to be distantiated. So art remained outside of scientific discourse. Although scientists, they wrote their autobiography, they wrote their stories of life, but they remain outside of their main scientific discourse. If we look at Schrodinger's writing, even the writing of Einstein, writing of Heisenberg, and also the writing of Ilya Prigogine recently, who wrote several papers and books on futures, how future is not just singular, there are multiple futures. Then art is not separate from scientific discovery, scientific writing, and presentation of scientific invention. If we look at art, then art can be conceived as subject, as orientation, as process, as product. So let me go briefly about art, which has an important role in conceptualizing STEAM education. So if we look at arts, then we can find different subjects within arts. For example, fine arts. I'm making presentation from the third floor, and on the ground floor, we have sculpture. We have the studio of sculpture in this building in my university. So we have fine arts department, and there can be literary arts, there can be industrial arts, there can be performing arts, there can be visual arts, and there can be many more when we talk about art as subject. So this is, sometimes we also use art as subject, but we also use art as orientation. So when we talk about orientation, then we talk about place and spatiality. Place has a very important role to play in conceiving educational activities. Without place, we cannot imagine education. So we talk about place-based pedagogy. When we talk about place, we talk about heritage. We talk about, several artifacts as well. So spatiality is very, very important, without which you cannot teach science, math in a meaningful way. So in Nepal, we have actually we encourage teachers, now we encourage teachers and educators to bring artifacts, to use artifacts to teach different dimensions, to help students learn different dimensions, such as science, math, technology, so on and so forth. So spatiality is very important, because without spatiality, as I said, you cannot go upstairs, downstairs. That's the very basic meaning of spatiality. But apart from that, education itself about orientation. It's about spatiality. It's about place. It's about direction. The next is representation. How we represent knowledge. If knowledge is represented as abstract, subject-centric form, then it is not possible that we educate them to orient for a better future. So instead, we are orienting them towards the past, because subjects are considered to be the representation of past. And sense of direction. So art also helps us to create direction. Direction with purpose, direction with openness. So this is how we use art as orientation. When we talk about art as process, then lots of self-cultivation entails here. So without cultivation of self, learning is not possible. We talk about expression, we talk about communication, action, and reflection. Individuality is also very important here. Or individuality, individual agency is to be cultivated, and there is no other orientation apart from, I think there may be many orientation, but as far as we know, because we are in the city which is called Lalitpur. Lalit means art and Pur means city. So this is city of art and craft that our School of Education is situated. We have around 4 UNESCO heritage sites, and they inform our historicity of the dependence on arts, because the inhabitants of this city in the past would spend 1 month in cultivation, in paddy plantation, and next 11 months would invest their time in producing sculpture and other forms of crafts. And there are many temples around as well. So in that, we are interested. Yes, I mentioned earlier, artifacts are very, very important. But why these arts, why they invest that much of time in art? To express themselves, to communicate the world, to perform certain thing in the world. So this is the purpose of art, and how that can be brought to educational process. I think we cannot do simply by separating subjects, bringing together the different subjects or orientations through this process. So as I said earlier, individual cultivation is very important, and there is art helps us to cultivate individually. We invest time in painting. We invest time. This I'm speaking metaphorically. So if you consider learning as art making, if you consider learning as sculpturing, if you consider learning as building a temple or a mosque or anything, and that is the cultivation. That's how we speak metaphorically. So when we talk about artists, then they are told, they are asked to write something, do something, and that is pretty much driven by teacher interest. So if students are engaged in producing something, producing engaging in collaborative art project or collaborative project of any kind, then they are engaged in producing certain object or certain idea or certain form of artifact. So then they can produce items or materials, and they come up with certain accomplishments. And because these items and materials, they refer to their accomplishments. Okay. And then that would have an impact. If they have something tangible with them, they have something that can be touched, that can be felt, that can be sensed, then that would have lasting impact. So art is not just a subject. Art is not just orientation, not just process, but it can also be considered as product. So this is also very useful for basic level education. We call basic level education in Nepal from early grade till grade 8. So even not just grade 8, but also students at the secondary level and also students in teacher education. So this is what we call about art. And when we talk about STEAM education, then art considered as pedagogy. There are different forms of art and they can be brought in pedagogical process. If we are familiar with drama-based inquiry, then more improvisational drama can be used inside the classroom, in which students act in an impromptu sense. Teacher come up with a pedagogical process in which dramatization is at the center. That's not like not completely sort of, a drama that has already been a pre-staged drama. It's impromptu drama. So that becomes a part of inquiry process, okay? And art can be used as pedagogy in many possible ways, like they do collaborative work and they make presentations and they also use artifacts. They perform arts-based activities, as I said, drama, theater, dance, and so on and so forth. And art can also be used to represent their true identity. They can write poetry, they can reflect through poetry, they can reflect through, painting or drawing, not just textual representation. So art can be used as a mode of representation in their everyday activities. Teachers also use art as a representation. They might write, brief poetry, or they might also use cartoons. And also, if they are a good painter, so painting can also be used. Or they might hire somebody. They might collaborate with somebody who has good painting sort of skills. And we also think arts as learning process, because arts refer to something which is emergent, which is open, which is ongoing. So when learning process we cannot imagine a learning process to be very linear, very mechanical, very unreflective. Then arts can be used as learning process or to model our learning process, which is non-linear, quite often which is non-linear, which is chaotic, which is euphoric, which is more of accidental. So that is defined, that can be represented by art, that can be modeled by art as opposed to science. I don't mean to say it's that science is in binary opposite to art, because many scientists come through their accidental learning or their intuition. And, the hypotheses and the processes are defined later, but see the context of invention or discovery, be it Einstein, be it Newton, or René Descartes, who introduced the concept of coordinate geometry. Then we see across the board that science, they don't invent science by hypothesis testing. Comes from intuition, probably, in many cases. There might be few exceptions, but in majority, we might see that in the history of scientific knowledge, production. And we can also see other model in between. For example, Ackman model, Georgita Ackman, who claims to be the forerunner or the founder of STEAM education. Although there are many in different traditions, probably the label that was created probably by Ackman. She's very hostile about it, and she also spoke to some of my students, and she claimed that we cannot use STEAM. And I would say that we use STEAM. It's not our copyright. Nobody has that copyright probably. But this is an intellectual discourse, an intellectual space. Nevertheless, I would like to she proposed 4 stages of the development of STEAM model. So first is content, then is disciplinary, then is multidisciplinary, then integrated, probably transdisciplinary model. For example, if you see Ekman's model, that the first stage is content model, that is the basic model, that is the proto-STEAM model, or this is before STEAM. Second, then we start with then organizing this in discipline like physics, biology, chemistry, geoscience, biochemistry, biotechnology, so on and so forth, they come under science. And then we have technology. So construction, production, agriculture, communication, transportation, so on and so forth, they come under technology. And then electrical, computer, chemical, aerospace, so on and so forth, these are engineering. And algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus, theory, and so many other things, so many other subjects come under mathematics. Arts, physical, arts, fine art, manual, language, liberal. So they also include social sciences as well. They may not be exactly arts, but we can say. So these are disciplinary specific: science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and arts. Next would be STEM and art. This is multidisciplinary. Then we have a STEM one club and another club is art. And you interact with them. You identify simply 2 orientation. One is STEM orientation, the other is A orientation. The final would be then STEAM. This is integrated. This is transdisciplinary, not just multidisciplinary. This is what she calls it hierarchy, the STEAM hierarchy, STEAM pyramid, she calls it. This is also okay to operate across the board. This is fine, okay? And this is called universal holistic. So we focus more on STEAM pyramid. So this is what, we also use this one as well. But this is the holistic is the culmination stage. STEAM is the culmination stage. Probably we start from content specific model as well. We also try to connect physics and biology. Probably we need to start from there. Sometimes we connect science, technology. Sometimes we work STEAM and art, and then STEAM and probably holistic, which is transdisciplinary. So this is STEAM pyramid model by Georgita Ekman. You find it elsewhere, everywhere on the internet. And the final move and the very important move is critical and transformative move. And here we have 4 major orientation within this move. Probably I have some time. Please let me know how long can I speak. This is the final one. So probably I can conclude and we can have some discussions. So the first is education as sustainable development. This is the move thanks to UNESCO. And second is social responsibility move, social responsibility of education. And arts is radical response. Arts is not just a subject, but is a radical response. Because a science tells half a story. The half a story, in order to tell half a story, we need something. So art can be used as a radical response to promote, 21st century skills, to promote critical and creative dimension of education. The final orientation is empathy and well-being. We need to think of empathy. The mechanistic model have shifted towards more empathic model of learning, empathic model of organization, and also well-being. So these 4 orientations are discussed next. When we talk about education as and for sustainable development, then here we need to consider non-Western perspectives as well. Okay, probably Hindu, Buddhist, Islam, Jain, Sikh, and many other traditions, they might contribute. There is a special bonding between nature-human relation throughout the history of human evolution, okay? From algae to present day, present form of human being. So we have been protected by nature. So nature is a provider. Without nature, we cannot actually survive. In the ecosystem, nature is very important. Other creatures are also important. So nature is a provider. Nature is a mother. So this is the concept. It is opposed to the concept of nature as a thing, which I discuss a little later. Second is the critical awareness. So there are two kinds of awareness. One is the very hegemonic awareness that, oh, okay, education should be like this. Education has been like this and it should be like this. This is hegemonic awareness. Hegemonic awareness is the awareness that we accept as normal as it is. So it's business, it's opposite to business as usual model. So we question our being, our limitation, and we question the limitation of structure. So this is what we call critical awareness. And also awareness is not sufficient. So in 2-3 slides later, I talk about the different forms of learning as well. So we talk about sustainable actions. Then education is not just about cognition. It is also about conviction. It is also about action. Okay, cognition, you know, A plus B whole square. You know the relationship between kinetic and potential energy. So it is not just, they are just cognitive knowledge, cognitive dimension, and they are not enough. Where to use them? You know, how can we use them to perform our actions to maintain the sustainability of this planet? And in order to become sustainable, in order to promote sustainable development, lifelong learning is one of the qualities of this generation and even the earlier generation and next generation. So without lifelong learning, we do not develop the attitude towards solving the problem. We develop the attitude of preserving certificates, which is called banking model, as Freire suggests. So this is what we consider education as, education as in for sustainable development. If we see ESG worldview, then these two are always in tension. Nature is a thing, or nature is provider, mother, giver. If we see different religious and wisdom traditions across the world, nature has been conceived differently. The Judeo-Christian tradition conceives nature as a thing, but non-Western, many traditions, many wisdom traditions consider nature as mother, provider, and giver. Now we come to the point that we should not exploit nature, and we need to. And then education is the right place. Schools, universities, and educational processes and systems are the right place to take the students towards the direction of nature, the conception of nature as provider, mother, or giver. So when we look at STEM if we look at the purpose of education, not just STEM or STEAM education, any educational system and processes, why we need these systems and processes. We need them because we tend to think education in many possible ways. But in 1960s and 70s and 80s, during the Cold War era, this idea was pretty much politicized, that if you see social responsibility and so on and so forth, you would be labeled towards a certain bloc. But now, due to global crisis, due to war, due to climate crisis, due to terrorism, and due to famine and all sorts of these international crises in international relations, we cannot stay aloof. We need to be activists. Activists not of a political ideology, probably. Activist of problem solver, activist of educational process and system, which enable many, if not all. So STEM is not just subject matter, STEM is and for social change, and this becomes STEM. So this is what, socially responsible STEM. If we embrace socially responsible STEM education, then we need to embrace STEAM education. So if we see then arts plus STEM, then if we look at STEM can be one circle. Then there are many other skills that we need. We need critical thinking skills. We need creativity. We need personal management. We need social relationship. We need to be interculturally aware, and we need to be ethical. Then we need different dimensions of arts as well. So, and then if we see transformative STEM curriculum. I brought this because curriculum itself is a philosophical realm, philosophical orientation. Then we develop curriculum leadership among teacher educators as and for change. Then here we inquire, we relate, we create, we design, we develop certain skills. And these are different dimensions. For example, inquiry can be related with science, relating can be related with mathematics, and designing can be connected with engineering, and skilling could be connected with technology. But this is not enough. This may be necessary. What we need, sustainability education, which I outlined in my earlier slides. So, and then next is critical cultural consciousness. You know, our impulsive actions, unexamined actions might not be helpful for maintaining the planet. So critical cultural consciousness are also very, very important. We need to help students to question our situatedness, question the wrongdoing that is going on, and we need to help them to be ethical. And in order to become ethical, we need to be critical of, you know, what is going on. So then moving toward the self and the centrality of the quality of that individual, quality of agency is pretty much driven by the quality we invest, the time, the quantity that we invest in self. So in that perspective, I again draw from Parker Palmer, who prompts us to ask these 4 questions. If we are teachers or teacher educators, then we always ask, what am I going to learn, or what am I going to teach? How am I going to learn? Second, this is asked by many people, if not all. The first is asked by all people. Everybody asked first question. Second question is it's asked by majority. Why question, why am I going to learn, is asked by little less. And who am I becoming, who am I as a teacher, is not asked by people. I think very few people, you know, if not known, very few people ask this question. And this question I presented, a cartoon is here, that we look into our shelf. So this self-examination is very, very important. And thanks to world religions, you know, different religions, Islam, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, and many, the wisdom side of the religions, they focus on self, cultivation of self, becoming a good person. I think this is where we need to focus our learning. Then when we focus on our learning through these questions, then we need not just relate ourselves, our learning in conceptual, not just in reflective, not just in critical, but also creative, imaginative, and that we call visionary. And in order to develop visionary teacher educators, we need to invest in the cultivation of self. And that also is a realm of art. So from there, then, you know, this is how we can actually come up with a hierarchy, not just a hierarchy, but a kind of nested connection between this conceptual, reflective, critical, and visionary knowing, which is the hallmark of STEAM learning that we implement here. Okay, so with this, I thank you to all of you for listening to me. Thank you once again. So there might be question and answer. I'm prepared to respond to your questions. If I don't know, then I'll say I'll look into them, and I send email via our colleague, Professor Nini Mariana. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Balchandra, for the great presentation. So yeah, now we will open 3 questions first for the Q&A session. So you are very welcome to give or to deliver your questions. And if it is not convenient for you to ask in English, you also can ask in Indonesian. I will try my best to translate it into English. Jadi jika ada peserta yang ingin bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, dipersilakan, monggo, dan saya akan mencoba untuk menerjemahkannya ke dalam bahasa Inggris. Okay, so who wants to ask? You can raise your hand or you can type in the chat forum. Welcome.
Kak, ini udah pakai headset kok, Kak.
Okay, Professor Bal, seems like there is no questions from our participants. Maybe they are still sent to us in the first beginning sessions. So perhaps from me, I would like to ask Professor Bal about the STEAM philosophy. We know that there are multidisciplinary of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in the STEAM philosophy itself. My question is there any possibilities of other disciplinary or other field to be integrated into this STEAM? And if there is, what is the factors or what are the factors that we need to consider to integrate other related field into STEAM itself? So thank you, Professor Bal.
Okay, thank you for the question. Let me clarify. We can consider STEAM at three levels. One is in a literal sense, in a sense that STEAM is just a combination of science, math, technology, arts, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. This is very much literal understanding. This is first level of understanding. Second, we can consider STEAM as pedagogy. Then we can connect, we work, teachers come together, at least, 2 or 3 subject, teachers of 2, 3 subjects, they come together, they sit together, they develop their pedagogy. Like language, science, and social studies teacher, they come together. Or religion, teacher of theology, they come together. This is another model. It's a more of pedagogical model. Third is, it is a model for curriculum development. In that, we develop a multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary perspective, in that we can mix so many things there. It's an orientation, as I said in my presentation, it's an orientation. So in Nepal, in my university, in my school, in our programs, we use STEAM as orientation. We also use it pedagogy, but also as orientation. So here we focus as a tool for curriculum development. In that, we do not mean that we don't need subjects. We develop orientations. A biology teacher can develop STEAM orientation. He or she might work with others. A theology teacher might develop STEAM orientation. A language teacher might work with science, math teachers on teaching a poem in Nepali. So this is the orientation. So this is the approach of STEAM education. So this is what I would say. So anything and everything that can be brought together, but the purpose is to make it more productive, meaningful learning. The purpose of STEAM education is to make learning more meaning-centered, authentic, productive, and empowering. So that's the purpose of STEAM education. Thank you so very much for your question.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Balchandra, for the answers. And is there any other questions from the other participants? You also can ask in Indonesian, and I will translate it into English. You can type in the chat. A question here from the committee in this room. The question is in Indonesian. The question is, bagaimana cara kita yang nantinya akan menjadi pendidik untuk menghadapi dan mengambil solusi mengenai peserta didik yang kurang memiliki keterkaitan terhadap salah satu bidang STEAM. Okay, so the question is like this, Professor Bal. So how is our way as an educators, especially here elementary school teachers, to face and to solve the problem if the students has no any interest in the STEAM itself, so has no interest in science, technology, engineering, arts, or mathematics. So what is the solution and the way to face this kind of problem, especially for the elementary school teachers? Okay, thank you, Professor Bao.
Thank you very much. I think, you know, I'm not talking about the academic side of science, math, technology, mathematics, engineering, and arts. I'm talking about them as tools. So we may not say this is science and this is technology, this is engineering, this is arts, this is mathematics. Rather, we focus on problem so that they can use those tools and concepts, number one. Number two, we may not say STEAM, we might say transdisciplinary or integrated approach. That, you know, then you can even integrate social studies, theology, religion, language, maths, a little bit of maths, little bit of art and craft. So you can bring together. You can use these skills or knowledge systems to solve any kind of problem. Or even if, you know, let me put it this way, then they might need to design something. Then, you know, when they need to design, probably they need to come up with, for example, they need to come up with the measurement. Even if you don't say mathematics, they use mathematical skills. Probably they need to talk about material, their density, their thickness. Probably that can be related with science somehow. And probably they have to design, and that can be related with engineering. Okay, probably they have to do some kind of painting. So, you know, I didn't know the curricular context in Indonesia, but in our context, we do like that in elementary level. So students, I mean, we suggest our teachers to use this, you know, the collaborative approach, the mixing or the synergy of different approaches and orientation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. And we see that there are another question in the chat message. So it's from Ines Unesa. Excuse me, sir. How do we as teachers maximize innovative learning that refers to STEAM so that students have the ability to solve the problem they face critically, creatively, and communicatively? Yeah.
You know, in our university, in our research and teaching program, what we suggest, or what is our sort of thinking as of now, is that we should start from students. We should start from their curiosity. Of course, there is a very important role of teacher. Teacher has to be creative himself or herself. Otherwise, you know, robot will do, or a machine will do the work in a better way. But if we are to be more, you know, if we are to promote creativity, and we need to be creative first, and then we also encourage students to be creative. So we need to start from students. That would be the better way, rather than focusing on, you know, ourselves. We need to focus on students. So students are not the means in terms of promoting creativity. Students are not the means. Students are ends in themselves. So science, math, technology are the means. They are the means. They are not the end. They are not the final product. They are not the final kind of, you know, result, but they are the means. And students are the final product. So that is the philosophy that we need to adapt, so that we can facilitate students to take, you know, multiple journeys. Not all students would be in the same journey. So that is the orientation that we need to develop. Then we become more creative and innovative. There is no prescription to creativity and innovation apart from helping students to grow. So for that, teachers have to plan in a way that they ensure both, you know, the collaborative and individualistic learning. So I think that's what we think here. That's what our colleagues, you know, promote this view as far as creativity and innovation is concerned in education. There is one question, Anita Ramawati. What are the goals of the 4 STEM approaches in developing projects that are of interest to students? As I said earlier, I think one of the goals is to consider learner as end in himself or herself. Learner is not the means, that's the goal. Okay, so learner, for example, we need to finish the curriculum, then we make learners the means. But actually, curriculum is the means and learner is the end. So that's how we need to negotiate. Then we can generate project of students' interest. We can help students to generate their projects. We work together in a collaborative space. So the pedagogy of STEM education is not just the pedagogy of didactic, direct instruction. That might also be used to some extent, but it is a pedagogy of shared learning, participatory learning. That's what I shared in my earlier in my presentation as well. It's more of a space that coming together, and cultivation of self-cultivation is very, very important, so that they can take responsibility. They can be the problem solver rather than problem creator, or problem rather than problem creator. But problem creation is another way, another pedagogical approach, which can be interpreted differently. Okay, that's it. What I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Balchandra, for all the answers, and thank you so much to the participants who delivered the questions. So before we end the first session from the committee, we would like to give a certificate of appreciation to Professor Bal by online. So maybe can take pictures.
Thank you very much. Thank you so very much for your certificate. So I'm more than happy to be part of this process. Whatever I said on the basis of my experience. I'm not very much familiar with the Indonesian system. So take these perspectives as an outsider perspective. You are the persons who to conceive STEM education. It's not that you import from elsewhere. You are the one who conceive STEM education. This is for the purpose of dialogue, not the purpose of imposition. I'm not prescribing anything. This is just my approach. This is how we do here in Nepal. And probably it has some value in Indonesian education system. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I humbly accept this certificate. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Balchandra. And now it's time for the group photo. So it's the session for group photo. Maybe we'll take photo together. So in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Bal, for the great presentation. So we are jumping to the second presentations, and the second presentation will be presented by Professor Binod Prasad Pant, and the presentation is about STEM best practices at universities in Nepal. So before we start, I would like to introduce the CV from Assistant Professor Binod Prasad Pant. So Assistant Professor Binod Prasad Pant is an assistant professor and acting head of the Department of STEM Education at Kathmandu University, School of Education, Nepal. Assistant Professor Binod has been working with a number of Nepali teachers and teacher educators who examine their lifetime experiences as students, teachers, and teacher educators. He speaks and writes about pedagogical innovations, uses of technology in education, child-friendly classroom, authentic assessment. His research interest is in transformative educational research, participatory action research, mathematics education, STEM education, and research studies on reflective practices. So for the next 45 minutes, we would like to welcome Assistant Professor Binod Prasapan for the presentation. So, Assistant Professor Binod, time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Clear, Binod?
Yes.
Okay. So now so today in my presentation, I'll be talking about the practices that we have been conducting at Department of STEM Education, and then that courses that we have been offering at Kathmandu universities, and the most importantly, the activity that we have been doing with school teachers in Nepali context. So in case of this STEM educations, so my presentations outline, it goes in this way. So I'll be sharing few things under the context, and then STEM educations program at Kathmandu universities, and our pedagogical practices, because mostly we run teacher education program, and our research activities, and then how we have been collaborating with government and private sectors, and finally our realizations at this stage. Because our Professor Luitel, he's also the Dean of School of Education, he has already given the overall philosophical background of this STEM education. Now I'll be talking more about the activities that we have been doing in the universities. So first of all, we have 4 departments in our School of Education. So one of which is Department of STEM Education. So we have different programs. We have 12 different programs, including undergraduate program. Here we have PhD in STEM education. So we have been running MPhil in STEM education. Similarly, we have Masters in STEM education. Also, we have Masters in Math education, and we recently developed postgraduate diploma in STEM education, and we do have PGD in ECD and primary education as well. So especially I'll be sharing our practices that have been conducted under Masters in STEM education, and also few on the MPhil in STEM education, because they are more related with the teacher education program or teachers as researchers. And then now, just I want to share very few things regarding our understanding about STEM educations, though Professor Luitel has clearly mentioned in his earlier presentations. So one is this STEM, that we have understood this as a workforce development paradigm. So if you see the history of this STEM educations around the globe, so they have been focusing more on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So one of the purposes is to promote economic rationality, which is necessary, but what we have realized that it is not sufficient, because the purpose of dealing with STEM educations is to develop skillful human resources. So now with that, the factories can consume, and then if you see from the perspective of this political economy, so it is perhaps it promotes capitalism. And then what we have been realizing, and the other literatures around the globe also, they have been realizing that what about the producing responsible citizen? So if you only focus on economic rationality, and if you only focus on producing skillful human resources, so then we have been facing different crises in this 21st century. So why is it so? So what are the reasons behind it? And then lately we realized that we need to add the component of arts, that is what we call human values, and then integrated ways of knowing, and then cultural ways of knowing. So that is what we have taken this STEM educations from different lenses. So one of which is this integrated learning, and then integration of arts, and most importantly at Kathmandu universities, led by our Professor Luitel. So our focus is more on this transformative learning. So how can we transform ourselves as a teacher or teacher educator, and how can we influence in our territory? For example, school system, education systems, or in the community where we live. So that is how we have been discussing about this transforming self and then transforming to the society. So that is what the focus of this STEM educations. And then now I just want to share a few things about these teacher education programs in Nepal in general, and the problems that we have been facing, And one of the possibility is to incorporate this STEAM educations in school education. So, so broadly speaking, in teacher education programming Nepal, because we do have other universities also. So there are other universities which is largest in terms of number of students, and then who produce many teachers in every year. And then if you see the curriculum, we can see that these pedagogical and content courses are allocated separately. For example, in undergraduate or master's degree, for example, in teacher education in math and teacher education in science. So there are a list of pedagogical courses, there are a list of content courses, and then we do not see the connections between these two ideas. And there are several learning theories which are discussed, but largely very conventional learning theories, such as some behavioristic approach. They also talk this constructivist approach, but they have not moved beyond this constructivist approach, more this transformative approach, and then more than this participatory approach. And there are few components of this practicum, and there are thesis and research project. But going into this nature of courses, what we realize that at Kathmandu universities, we realize that there are almost no, or if you see very minimal components of these multiple forms of knowing, because there is only the cognitive ways of knowing is given much emphasis. Because in the previous presentations also, there has been some discussions on other forms of knowing. And then most importantly, this integration of disciplines is largely neglected. For example, if one particular subject teacher goes into the classroom, he or she does not see the connections between different subjects. For example, language and mathematics, language and science, social studies and mathematics. So we realize that we need to produce teachers who can see the connections among different subjects, because we are dealing to the same students, but different subject teachers are dealing separately without acknowledging these connections of different subjects. And the most important thing is that whenever we deal this pedagogical and content knowledge separately, so it is very challenging for teachers to connect this pedagogical content knowledge. And next important observation that we have made in our career is that most of the teachers in schools or even in the universities, they are expecting some very ready-made techniques of teaching, very a kind of this ultimate ways of dealing with the students. So whenever we go in teacher training sessions, they are expecting that. So what are the ultimate ways of teaching? So if you have any techniques or if you have any tips, just share with us so that we can directly apply those techniques in the classroom. But what we realize that the context is different, the students are different, the curriculum is changing. So we do not have such kind of ready-made techniques in this education or pedagogical. So for that, we have to invite them for these autobiographical reflections. So keeping their own practices at the center. So we realize that we need to give emphasis more on this critical self-reflections, and which has been very limited, which was very limited in the existing teacher education program. So having said this, and then we moved ahead so towards these new programs, and we realized that we need integrations of learning, and we also need this arts integrated learning, because our background is math and science. And what we realize in such kind of subject, mathematics, science, and engineering, so there is a very limited ways of arts. For example, use of poem and use of stories or use of other different forms of arts. So they have been completely neglected. And we realize that students love arts. So almost all people, they love arts. And why can't we, or why don't we integrate the artistic perspective in the learning? And the next one is we need to produce.
I'm so sorry. We cannot see your PPT here. So your slides is not changing.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So in which slide you are looking now?
The first slide.
Only first slides?
Yeah.
Can you see now?
Oh yeah, our relationship. Okay, yeah, we can see it now clearly now. Thank you, Assistant.
Me. Hello, is there any issue?
Yeah, we cannot see your slides, Bernard. Probably you can share the files to us, then we can help you.
Is it fine now?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, sorry for this technical errors. So can you see these different lenses of STEAM education?
Yes, that's the slide.
Okay.
Yes, we
Okay.
can clearly.
Okay.
Professor.
I think there are some. Okay, yeah. So okay. Okay, sorry for these technical errors. Okay, am I audible now? Neni, is it fine? Okay. Now, I was talking about these different lenses of STEAM educations, and then I also discussed about this the problem that we have been facing in this teacher education program, and then we made a kind of realization that we need teachers who can develop a kind of critical self-reflexivity. Now the next one is we realize that we also go for this policy advocacy, and then we also need to develop some kind of successful stories while working with different communities. So now I'm going to share the practices that we have been doing. So the first one is this pedagogical practices. So in these pedagogical practices, what we do in our university is we have kept or we have merged this pedagogical content knowledge. So we have several courses so that connects this content and pedagogical together. So it was not kept separately. For example, even in these teaching and learning activities, students come from different background. Some students come from science background, some come from mathematics background, some come from language background. And then we just invite them to connect those subject matter with the pedagogical matter in the same subject so that they can see the connections between this. So the next important aspect is that we always ask students to involve in this autoethnographic ways of writing. And then rather than talking about so-called these big theories, so we ask them to explore the problems from their context, and then we ask them to see the possibilities that can be implemented in their own context, because this teaching and learning should be more contextual and then cultural. And then we also ask for these different cultural ways of knowing. For example, in one of the courses of mathematics, we have offered this ethno-mathematics as one of the courses where students come from different ethno-mathematical practices, and then they see that if we introduce those ethno-mathematical practices in the school, and then students feel they kind of acknowledge with these cultural ways of knowing. And then so during the course, the students develop several resource materials. For example, lesson plans in an integrated way, and then even the session plans, because one of the purpose is to make students as a teacher trainer. So they have to deliver teachers training. So during their last semesters, so we ask them to develop a very engaging these session plans. And then I just want to give focus on this particular aspect, because in our teacher education program, we have not taken autoethnography just as a research method. So we have taken this autoethnography as a pedagogical approach also, because they also have some background as a students, as a school students or university students. And then we begin almost all classes will begin from reflecting their own practices. And at the other side, we also invite them to reflect their cultural practices, reflect this importance of the learning theories they have used. So in this way, there is a synergy between self as a teacher educator and others as the literatures and the theories and the contemporary practices. So there are several literatures that we have been used why autoethnography has been taken as a pedagogical approach. And then under these ideas, we frequently discuss about the ideas of this critical pedagogy, because students come from different backgrounds, and then we come from different kind of society, and then there are different practices, and when we bring different practical aspects of the society, and we raise questions whether this is a correct pedagogical approach or not. So what are the critical aspects that should be discussed in some even maths and science or language classes? So whenever we discuss this critical pedagogy, and then teachers started to explore their own limitations, and then teachers started to envision the better alternatives or better solutions to address the existing solutions. So this is what a kind of this is why I believe what I believe about teaching, and then why should I need to become a critical reflective practitioner. So this is what we have been doing as a pedagogical approach. For example, so this is just a screenshot of our courses, because we run in a blended mode. So we have been updated all the courses in learning management system. For example, critically reflect on your practices as a math or science teachers. And then if you see their key reading materials and then learning outcomes, there is a kind of connections, and then students have opportunity to reflect their own practices. And even the assignments, so we give the space that reflect your own learning journey about maybe different learning theories or research methodologies, this and that. And whenever they reflect their own journey and they see different strengths and different limitations, and they also see the space for the improvement. And now I move on this research activities that we do in the universities. So there are several dissertations or research that students have been conducted in STEAM educations. So I just want to share some of the experiences that the teachers or teacher educators have shared. For example, if you read this, I thought that I was a very good school teacher. When I read critical pedagogy, I'm now thinking I'm one of the worst teachers. So this is what the realizations of teachers. So rather than pointing fingers to outward, so they are pointing fingers to self. So for example, if you see the next one is, I always wanted to explore grand theory in education and try to use them in it. But later we realized that we have rich culture, we have our ways of knowing that should be considered in education. So that is what the realizations that our master's students have made so during their research project. And you can see that few of the publications, that is, for example, this is transformative STEM educations in Nepal, how we can connect academic and this non-academic world. And again, my journey of frustrated learners to becoming a visionary learning, and then countering the hegemonic pedagogical culture. So such kind of research activities have been carried out in our Department of STEM educations. And then, so there are few publications as well. And the next one is, now I want to share this collaborations with government and then private sectors. Because when we established this Department of STEM educations, so we have been producing teachers and teacher educations from master's and MPhil levels. And we also realized that we need to collaborate with government and private sectors just to show these successes in the community. So what we did now, for example, one of the activities that we have been doing, we have been collaborating with Nepal government, one provincial government, and then who has funded these 27 government schools to implement STEM or STEM approaches in school. So that means now this STEM education has been institutionalized legally in not only in the academia, but also in the level of this government. And then KU has been selected as a technical partner to conduct activities. And you can see some of the photographs here. They all are school teachers, and then few are this is school management committee chairs, and then we are just conducting the workshops on how we can STEM educations can be implemented in these schools. And later when they go to the schools, and then they implement in the classroom. And now the next one is, so we have international collaborations. So this is very long projects of 4 and 5 years, NORAD funded projects. And then one of the components is STEM educations. So this implementing STEM educations in few public schools of Nepal. And then in these collaborations, we use participatory action research. So rather than explaining all things by university, academia, or these researchers, so we invited teachers to keep their problems, and then we negotiated to explore the possible solutions. And then we believe that knowledge is co-constructed, and we also believe for pedagogical activism. So that is what we have been doing in the schools. So we are also activists. We are not only armchair researchers sitting in the universities. So we have to make changes in the community. Our community means school systems. So we value the participations of the community members. So under this philosophical assumptions, so we conducted several activity in the schools. For example, we started from inquiry-based activities, because if we directly begin with STEAM educations, we realize that that does not work. And first of all, we discuss with the school teachers, we develop collaborative cultures among teachers. The teachers started to develop games, very engaging activities and local practices. And then gradually they started to see the connections among subjects. You can see that there are different kind of different subject teachers. One is Nepali teachers, one is math teachers, and math teachers is asking that we can include language in my subject also. And even language teacher is expressing that, oh, mathematics is also can be included in my language teacher. So that is what a very good realizations that that happened during the activities. And what we did, we formed STEAM club in the schools. You can see that there are teachers and there are students. So this is a STEAM club, and then that STEAM club is dedicated to conduct several activities related to STEAM. And there are math teachers, there are science teachers, there are language teachers, and then they conduct several activities. So let me share a few of them. So the next one is, there are several examples of STEAM activity in the school. Now let me share one of them. Sorry, is it okay? Okay. Shall I go ahead? Is it fine? Yeah, okay. So so let me share one of the examples, because even in the earlier presentations there were a few questions how you have been implementing in the school systems. So the title itself is exploring the journey of vegetables from farmer lands to our kitchen. So that is what we call is STEAM education's project. And then in this particular projects, the purpose of the project is to explore the chain of cost price and selling price of the vegetables, because we live in the city area and vegetable come from a remote area, and there are several time of transactions, and there are several cost price and chain of cost price and selling price. And at the same time, the purpose of this project is to argue from the perspective of social justice. So who invests more amount and time, and who receives more profit, either farmer or other business persons who brought these vegetables from the farmer. And then one of the other this purpose is to identify whether those vegetables are good for health from the perspective of health, and also making students aware of this present vegetable where maximum pesticide has been used. And at some point in time, but very good thing is to mention here is that the students, they started to envision the alternative supply system, because the existing supply system is faulty, where the farmers do not get enough profit, but other persons, business persons is getting a very good amount of profit. So this supply system is not good. So and these were the objective of the lessons. And what we did, the students were sent to the market, were sent to this farmers, and then they were asked to explore the prices in different locations, or let's say the different phases, and then they were asked to analyze the status in each phases. And now what happened here, this is what we call STEAM here, and there are subject integration now. So the title is Journey of Vegetables. In our language subject, that Nepali and English, they are language subject, and students learn so how to write their daily reflective notes, and then how to speak with other people, and how to carefully listen the ideas of farmers and other people. And even in mathematics, they learn this after exploring the chain of cost price and selling price, profit and loss, and the calculation, and then percentage. Even in the same project, they learn this science and health related idea, the plantation issues, use of pesticides, healthy food. And in social studies, that is what we call this artistic component here, the social behavior and the social structure, and then people mindset. Because one of the group from that particular schools realized that even the farmer also, they keep pesticides in those plot where they want to sell the vegetables, but they do not keep the pesticides in another plot because that will be used for their food. And that is a kind of people mindset, because now let us keep the pesticide in these vegetables because I can buy this, or I should buy this. So that is what a kind of ethics as well. So this moral component also comes in the same project. So ethical market. So what is the maximum profit that we can take? Because we realize that in some of the cases, this in vegetable market, the people are taking more than 100% profit. So is it ethical? So can we keep 100% profit in a single transaction? So is it justice? Is it just, this is an issue of social justice also. Now here the purpose of sharing this project is that, so here the students learn different subjects. Here the students learn real world problem, and here the students become a critical reflective practitioner. Now they start to raise the voice because they realize that we need alternative supply systems. So in this way, we have been collaborating with school systems. And the next one is, let me share the collaborations with other international organizations. So in the last 3 years, we collaborated with all learning international organizations, and then we collaboratively developed this global STEM toolkit. So Kathmandu University is also one of the partners for developing this global STEM toolkit. So it is freely available in the internet. If you simply search global STEM toolkit of world learning and Kathmandu universities. So I was responsible to provide feedback and to work in this project from Kathmandu universities. And now the purpose of keeping this collaborations is that in this particular STEM projects, in this particular STEM toolkit, there are several projects that are listed in the book. And then we implemented one of them in Nepali context. The title of the project is Save the Species. So this is a STEM project. And then in one schools, so there were a group of students so reading in grade 6, 7, and 8. So they are also a part of this STEM project, and they selected that we have to work on this particular idea, save the species. And what we did at the beginning, if you see the first pictures, so that is a design thinking. So the students were asked to prepare the nest of the bird, so using these papers and other kind of locally available materials. And then so we made of this wooden so things. This is the house for the birds. And then what we did, we invited students to go to this place, which is very near to the schools. And then we asked students to write, how did you make that? And then what are its advantages? So what is our, so what can we do as a responsible students or responsible citizens? Or how can we support to save the species? So we discuss such kind of ideas in this particular STEM project. And then what we realized that students develop different kind of knowledge and skills after completions of this project. For example, there are different ideas of shapes, there are ideas of perimeter, there are ideas of volume, and then area. And there are also several ideas related to soft skills, how to communicate with others, how to take leadership in a particular this project, and then how to work in the group, and then how to be a collaborative learner. So in this way, the students develop a kind of soft skills as well as hard skills. And then so finally, so what we learned that this teacher education program, so it should be for generating innovative pedagogical practices. So rather than reproducing the same existing pedagogical practices to the next generations, because we as a teacher or teacher educators, we always have to explore the innovative pedagogical practices, because the world is changing, the mindset of students are changing, the focus of curriculum is changing. So we should not so carry the same conventional pedagogical practices for the next generation. And the next very important aspect that we realize that we need to develop students, they are university students as well as school level students as a very critical self-reflective practitioners. So they have to be able to raise questions to themselves, or they have to be able to raise questions to the community, even to their family members. So that is a part of this is addressing the social injustice. So that means we should not impart only skills and knowledge so that are given in the curriculum. So that is our one focus. And the next focus is that sense of independent and lifelong learners, because we can teach very limited things. Because even in teacher education program, students learn very limited learning theories. They learn very limited ideas, but there are several thousands of ideas in these days. And then if we are not able to produce students who have sense of this independent learner or lifelong learners, and then so they will not learn in the future. And we also realize that after having these international collaboration matters. It is needed. So it is very essential, because this cross-cultural learning very, very important. And then we also learned from each other. We learned through joint publications and joint activities, or maybe joint research degree programs. So this is what I have to present. So I'm sorry, I think some of you could not see the first few slides due to some technical issues. So I completed my presentations. So thank you so much. Now I'm happy to receive your comments, feedbacks, and suggestions.
Assistant Professor Binod Prasad for the great presentations. Now we will open Q&A questions, and we will open the first 3 questions. So welcome again for all the participants to ask or to deliver the questions, both in English or Indonesian. So welcome. Professor, we have one question here from Fifit Lestari. Is STEAM learning system being potentially success only based on project-based creation?
Yeah, okay, thank you for this question. So although there are several ways or several point of departure towards this STEAM educations, that is what we call investigative learning or inquiry-based learning. But I strongly believe on that this project-based learning is the most important and useful approach to introduce STEAM educations, because we are talking that STEAM education is the integrated ways of knowing, where we can integrate 2 or more than 2 subjects in a single task, so that so to develop such single task, project-based learning creates a very rich platform. Yeah, I do believe on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the answer, Professor. Then second questions. Is there anyone who want to ask? Okay, Professor, we have the second question here from Selfie Nurnisa. Regardless your explanation, has it been implemented properly in your country, Mr. Binod, in Nepal? And is it easy to implement also in Indonesian system? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for this question. Now let me share a few things of the first part of the questions. So it is very challenging. So it's not very easy to implement this STEAM approach, because we have been working for several years. And then, so I'm sharing that these are some of the activities conducted in the sample school. So it is not the case of this all schools in Nepal. And we as a university faculty and we as a researchers, so we have been advocating this to use in the all parts of Nepal, because the Nepal government also has updated its curriculum. We do have integrated curriculum for grade 1, 2, and 3. So it is recently developed. And then we do have this project-based learning as one of the very important pedagogical approach in the higher grades. And then we have been advocating that so STEAM approach could be one of the best approach in integrated curriculum and project-based learning. And we have been showing the success stories, because these are some of the success stories implemented in the few schools. And there are some organizations, some NGOs and other local organizations. So they have been working day and night to implement this STEAM educations, where we also have been providing our technical support. So this means it is not the case of generic all schools of Nepal, but it has been implemented in few schools, and then we are trying to expand its area. So I think, so having said, so I don't know so much in this Indonesian system, but what I can do believe that I think school can collaborate, university can collaborate with few schools and then government system, just to bring some of the success stories at the beginning, and after that you can go into the mass. So that is just my idea.
Thank you very much, Professor Pinot. And we have the third question here from Ines Unesa. Is there any learning system in Nepal used the same materials or being related to STEAM learning itself?
Okay, is there any learning system in Nepal use the same materials or being related to STEAM learning itself? Okay, so it's not so much clear for me what does that learning system means. Perhaps you are talking about teaching and learning, this pedagogical approach. So and then so what we do, although in these days, for example, few provincial government have clearly stated in their education policy that STEAM educations could be should be promoted. So I remember that the province where we live, this is province 3 that we call Bagmati province, has also kept this STEAM educations in the system itself. But there are, of course, there are other systems as well. And then even there are few local governments. There are several local governments, not few local governments. Even in my knowledge, there are more than 10 local governments. So they have prepared education system, and they have clearly stated that so STEAM learning should be the focus of their education system. So it is there. So I can see the another questions from Teknath Rai. Can you elaborate a little more about the role of TPAC model in STEAM educations? It seems STEAM approach is more driven by conceptual knowledge, in my opinion. Okay, this is TPAC is something else. This is technological, pedagogical, and then content knowledge. So if you see the literatures of this TPAC model, so it is a kind of this integrations of content with pedagogy and again with the technology. So this is also one of these pedagogical approach. But STEAM education is something different, something more than this, as per my knowledge, because here we consider this integration of arts, because arts has become as a prominent element in STEAM educations, where values, ethics are given much priority together with this conceptual things. So if you see from that perspective, so STEAM it is not driven by conceptual knowledge only. So it is driven by conceptual knowledge plus other kind of knowledge as well. For example, this is sympathy, or let's say values, ethics. Thank you, Texer, for your question.
Thank you, Professor Binan, and thank you for all the 4 questions. I think that's all for our Q&A session for this second presentation. Before we finish our second session, we would like to give a certificate of appreciation to Professor Binat. So thank you very much for being the speaker of this international webinar. So we would like to take picture in 3, 2, and 1.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You. And before we close our second session, we would like to ask all participants to take pictures together with Professor Binod. So we will take a group photo session. So be ready. And picture will be taken in 3, 2, and 1. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Assistant Professor Binod, for your time.
You are welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. We'll go to the third session of our presentation. So the third session or the third presentation will be given by Assistant Professor Ika Ramawati, EMDD. It is about STEAM best practices at universities in Indonesia. So before we start it, I would like to introduce the CV of Ibu Ika. Okay. So Assistant Professor Ika Ramawati is a lecturer, also my colleague in Faculty of Education, Department of Elementary School Teachers Education in State University of Surabaya. So Bu Ika has the Bachelor of Mathematics, Master of Elementary School Mathematics, and now is also a doctoral candidate from State University of Malang. There are a lot of researches there about elementary school teachers education, and then mathematics in literacy-based life, in numbers, and then the other researches. And then we also see there are 2 oral presentations here in international conferences. Next, and there are also a lot of publications from Bu Ika. We can see about mathematical literacy, development of alternative assessment management, and etc. Okay, so that's all we can share about our last speakers. So for the next 45 minutes, Mrs. Ika will, Assistant Professor Ika will share to us her presentation about STEAM best practices at universities in Indonesia. So without waiting for any longer, time is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ricky. Is it clear? Is it my voice clear? All right. Okay.
Yes, it's very clear. Thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, firstly, I want to say thank you to Mr. Ricky for moderating me, and thank you for Professor Balchandra for the extraordinary presentation about the STEAM philosophy, and Professor Binod. I was so excited because Nepal is already has a special STEAM department, special for undergraduate and for postgraduate also. So in this occasion, I would like to present about the best practice STEAM in university, especially in Indonesia. And I'm Ika Rahmawati from Universitas Negeri Surabaya. Okay, before we talk about STEAM best practice in Indonesia, I want to discuss something. I want to discuss first with all of you participants here. Okay, I have slide. What do you think? And I have picture here. So what do you think about this picture? What class of STEAM project is this? You can write down your answer in the chat box. What do you think? What class of STEAM project is this? First grade, second grade, third grade, fourth, fifth, or sixth? What do you think? What class of STEAM project is this? Balance bridge. Good. Thank you, Miss Nadia. What class? What class of STEAM project is this? Okay, thank you, Mr. Tech Andre. 3, 5th, 2nd. What else? 1 until 6. Okay, just mention on only one class. 1, okay. 1, 4, 3, okay. 5, 4, 3, okay. Okay, thank you for your participation. 2. Yes, Anna, thank you, Anna, for your answer. Yes, that's great. It was a STEAM project for 2nd grade elementary school students. So the picture you see on your screen is a STEAM project for 2nd grade elementary school students. And like Miss Nadia said, this project name is Balance Bridge or Stronger Bridge. Stronger Bridge. The students in 2nd grade is learn how to design a strong bridge that can withstand a heavy load. And the question is, or the problem is, what should the arrangement be? What should the arrangement be so the bridge can withstand a heavy load? And why? Why just not answer by arrange like how many straw, but we just answer this question with STEAM. We just answer this answer with STEAM. Why STEAM? Okay. Why STEAM? First, the first reason why STEAM. The first reason is 21st century skills. 21st century skills that all students from elementary school, secondary school to higher education must now possess. They are critical thinking, creative thinking, communication, and collaboration. The second reason why STEAM is students will be trained to find solution. In STEAM, every problem requires students to think critically in order to find the solution. In terms of the Stronger Bridge project, for example, students will seek solution for how to design a bridge that is both strong and sturdy. And the third reason, students will be trained to think empirically. Thinking empirically means based on the reality scene. In STEAM, this is obtained from the students' habit of observing the surrounding environment. And in terms of the Stronger Bridge project, students will examine the overall shape of the bridge design. And the last reason, why STEAM? Because according with the times, where all the activities and problem solving now involve not only one field of subject, but several fields of subject is needed. Okay, so this is what we want to teach prospective elementary teacher education in our department, elementary school teacher education, Universitas Negeri Surabaya, before elementary school students are able to think using STEAM. Okay, so the following 3 universities of our elementary school teacher education department that incorporate STEM or STEAM learning into their curriculum. First, we have UPI, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. They have the course, namely STEM learning in elementary school. And second, we have UNIMED, Universitas Negeri Medan. They have course, namely STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. And here we are, PGSD UNESA. We also have our course about STEAM, namely STEAM education in elementary school. STEM education in elementary school in our department, elementary teacher education, is taken by 5th or 6th semester students in PGSD UNESA. Why? Why 5th or 6th semester students? Because it refers to MBKM, Kurikulum Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka. Students have to complete the obligation of scientific and expertise courses until the 4th semester. So students are given the opportunity to deepen their learning about the elementary school, both in their own department or in other department. Well, in semester 5 or 6, this course, STEAM Education in Elementary School, is available as an alternative course that students can take in order to adapt to the changing time or the times that are currently developing. In fact, one fact you have to know, this course is also available as an elective course for students from another department. So even if you are not from our department, not from elementary teacher education department, you still can also take our course, STEAM Education in Elementary School. STEAM Education in Elementary School, in our course, department elementary school teacher, we have two big projects. The first project, namely adult level, and the second project, namely elementary school level. Why? Why the first project is adult level and the second project is elementary school level? Okay, first reason is why we call it adult level, because in this term, we want to train our students in our department thinking skills. We want to train students thinking skills so that they can think holistically about science, and then technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Of course, it will be easier for them to practice it if they think at their age level first, adult or teenager. So we called our first project is adult level. And then after the thinking skills have been formed, it will be much easier to teach and implement them in the second project, which will take place in elementary schools. So that's why we have two big projects. The first project is adult level, and the second project is elementary school level. Okay, in this STEM step, we employ a thought state known PP or PIPI. So if you want to remember about our STEM education in elementary school, you just remember about this terminology, PP or PIPI. What is PIPI or what is PP? First is problem. Our students will be trained to think empirically by looking at real problems in the surrounding environment that need to be solved. And then the first I is imagine. Then they have to discuss with their group to share ideas about the project that will be developed to solve the problems that occur. And the second P is plan. In this stage, they will create a product design timeline that will be used to solve problem. And the last I is implementation. So after they design, the last stage is implementing the product into society. We use Finesa as our learning medium. During our lecture process, and there are already structured step by step in Finesa at its meeting to facilitate the PP stage, or PIPI stage. As you see on your screen, we have the second meeting. The students hold group discussion about the problems that will be solved by the STEAM project. And on the third meeting, they will be presenting the outcomes of the discussion in order to solicit feedback from the lecturer. And the fourth meeting, following the input, students conduct interviews with experts to discuss potential solution to problems. And in fifth meeting, students present the findings of expert interviews in order to finalize the project that will be completed. And in the sixth meeting, student will be implement STEAM project. And on the seventh meeting, students present the outcomes of the implementation of the STEAM project. And on the eighth meeting, they will get a middle test, and they will back to the class in ninth meeting with the second project, elementary school level. They're starting to design STEAM project in elementary school, and on 10 meeting, students present the outcomes of this discussion, and on 11th meeting, they implement the STEAM project in elementary school, and on the last meeting, they present the outcomes of the implementation of STEAM project in elementary school. These are the documentation of its project. This is the first project, adult level. Our students develop kokolur. Kokolur is coconut telur. So in this project, this group observed that a lot of coconut fiber and eggshell wasted, even though it can still be used as a planting medium. So they developed kokolur, coconut telur. And the second project is cardboard lantern, Ramadan lantern, especially made from cardboard waste, especially from 8K cardboard, and used to decorate a residential area during the month of Ramadan. And the third project is hydroponic vegetable farming, a planting medium that utilizes narrow land, as most residential areas currently do not have vacant land to grow plants, so this product was developed. And the fourth project is automatic hand sanitizer machine. So entering the new normal after the COVID-19 pandemic, I think every public area is required to provide hand sanitizers. So this group made an innovation to make a simple hand sanitizer machine from cardboard that can minimize touch, physical touch. And the fifth project is citronella candle. This group makes the best use of lemongrass plants that grow a lot of in the surrounding their environment to create mosquito repellent candles. And about the second project in elementary school level, this is about the simple lantern wheel. So in this project, students in elementary school learn how to convert heat energy into motion energy. And the second project is mini water wheel. In this STEAM project, students in elementary school learn how to convert water energy into motion energy. And the third project is diabetic. This project is very beautiful because in this project, students learn to create secondary and tertiary colors by combining primary colors. And the fourth project is simple periscope. In this STEAM project, students in elementary school learn how to make a simple periscope. And last but not least, this is a fifth project, glass bottle music. In this project, students learn how to make musical instruments out of recycled glass bottles. Okay, and so from STEAM, we can learn something. From STEAM, we can learn that to solve the problem, sometimes we get lost. So when we get lost, what do? We can ask to whom? To others. So in this world, we are not alone. We need collaboration, like science, which sometimes need technology to find out why. Need engineering to find out how. It sometimes takes arts to figure out what it looks like. And sometimes we need mathematics to show how far the problem will go. So I think STEAM is, that's what friends are for. Like Professor Balchandra said on the first presentation, that perfection is not given, but perfection is created. Okay, that's all from me, Mr. Ricky. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ika, for your great presentation. We learned a lot from the presentation. Now we will open again the Q&A session, and for the first, we will open 3 questions. So welcome to ask Mrs. Ika, both in English or Indonesian.
Okay, Mr. Ricky, while waiting, some participants will give me some question. Maybe I want to share one more presentation. Can I?
Yeah, for sure, Mrs. Ika. Go ahead.
Okay.
May I ask, Rika?
Yes, who is speaking?
Okay. Oh, is there any
Nani,
question?
Pak Ricky. Yes, from me, Rika. Is that okay? So
Okay,
I'm
Bu
wondering.
Neni.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Bu Ika, for nice presentation with a lot of examples and projects that our students and also our elementary school students do in STEM education. But I'm wondering whether you have come across our undergraduate students' response or feeling towards doing the projects, and what do you think? And that's the first question. And the second one is, as the STEM lecturer at our department, what do you think can be improved from our design of STEM education? Thank you, Ibu Ka.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Neni.
Thank you, Bu Neni, for
There are,
the questions.
okay. There are the question from Ibu Neni. The first question is about our student response. Yes, Bu Neni. Okay.
Yes, our undergraduate students' response to the STEM design project.
Okay. Thank you, Bu Neni. I think they are very, very excited with our course, and they ever said to me that they're very happy because from this STEM project, they also have a new small business also, because from their project they can sell their project, for example, like citronella candle, and then what is it? I'm so sorry. Citronella candle. Okay, the lantern, and then the cocolure. So they are very excited. They have a good response for our course, Bu Neni. And then the second question is about the development for our course, maybe. Okay, I think we can develop our course like in the Nepal do. We can do some collaboration, not only in our students or our elementary school, but we can also do collaboration with another university or maybe with another government to make some more project STEAM, so that all of people know, they will know
Yeah,
more than
nice
STEAM.
idea, Wika. Yeah. So we can try the design that we have to Nepali context probably someday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good,
okay,
good, good.
we will.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Neni.
Yeah, thank you, Buneni, for the questions, and thank you, Buika, for the response, for the answer. And we have 4 questions here in the chat room. So the first one is from Anna. Excuse me, ma'am, how to explain to students if science in STEAM is not just about science? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anna. How to explain to students if science in STEAM is not just about science? We can give an example like the other project of STEAM, that we have another project STEAM that have not science, what kind of science subject in that, like diet batik. So I will share my screen. Okay. Okay. Nah, diet batik here. Diet batik here is not about science, only about science, nature science, but in this occasion, they learn about the how to make secondary and tertiary color from the primary color, which is, this is not only about the nature science, but this occasion they learn about the arts. So we can like give them a lot of example, that a lot of product, not only STEAM product that has what is that, science, only science, but I cannot explain about this example. Maybe Buneni, you can help me about the other example from STEAM product that not involve science, nature.
Yeah, Wika. Oh, yeah. I think like all components of teams usually involved in our project, but you can take, for example, if some of our students use met timeline history of historical facts, for example,
Timeline
and that's
history.
not included the natural. That's not including the natural science, but it's including social science and historical things. Yeah.
Timeline city. Timeline city.
Yeah,
You can.
timeline city.
Yeah, timeline city. You can make a product like a timeline city, and that in timeline city not only info about the science nature, but the social science.
Okay, thank you for the questions and for the answer. Now we will go to the second questions in the chat room from Ray. And as per your presentation, you have mentioned that this STEAM project is implemented in adult and also in elementary level. So I just want to know why not in high school level in Indonesia? It just to know, is there any hurdles in high school level?
Okay, thank you for the question, Mr. Tek Rai from Kusoit. Actually, there is no difficulty or there is no any hurdles in high school level. Just because our department is for adult level above 18. So we just make our students to design the project for adult level, but it is not. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, we still can hear you clearly, Mrs. Ika.
Hello?
Yes, we still can hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Mr. Ricky. I think my audio is, there is a problem in my audio. Okay. Hello?
Yes, we still can hear you.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm so sorry. Mr. Ricky?
Yes, can you hear my
Okay.
voice, Mrs. Ika?
No, Mr. Ricky?
Can you hear my voice? Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Ricky, can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear your voice clearly. Now, can you hear my voice?
Are you speaking to me, Mr. Ricky? Oh my God, I can hear your voice. Oh, I'm so sorry for this technological issue.
Yeah, maybe you can.
Okay, okay. You can hear my voice, but I cannot hear your voice. Okay, maybe I want to continue my answer. If I can hear your voice, I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ika, can you hear my voice? There is no response, yeah? It seems that we can hear Mrs. Ika's voice, but she cannot hear our voice clearly. And yes, we can hear Mrs. Ika's voice, but unfortunately, Mrs. Ika cannot hear our voice. Okay. Yeah, we are so sorry. We just got a bad news from Mrs. Ika that there is a blackout in her house, and also it is also raining there. So perhaps it's very bad signal. We are so sorry about this disruption. And for the other questions that have not been answered, we from the committee, we will keep the questions, we will save the question, we write it down, and we will pass it to Mrs. Ika, and later from the committee will answer it by email to the participants. So we are so sorry about this disruption and inconvenience. So maybe we can continue to the certificate of appreciation, but there is no Mrs. Ika here. Yeah, so thank you very much, Mrs. Ika, as being the speaker for the third presentation. We learn a lot from your presentation. And maybe before the closing that I will hand over to Master of Ceremony, I would like to ask all of us to take a group photo session with also Professor Bal Chandra and Professor Binod. So please, all of you turn on your camera, and also we would like to invite Professor Bal Chandra Ludel and Professor Binod Prasad Pant to turn on the camera, and we will take the pictures together. So taking pictures together in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so there's the last message from Nirai. Thank you, Ms. Ika, for sharing. The chat room, please. Indonesian education, your experiences may help for us to improve our practice in Nepal. Yeah, thank you also for Professor Bal Chandra for sharing about STEAM philosophy and Professor Binod for sharing about STEAM best practices at the University in Nepal. Hopefully this international webinar can give us a lot of knowledge and experiences that we can learn both in Nepal and in Indonesia. So that's all from me as the moderator, and I will hand over to the Master of Ceremony to close this international webinar. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much. We have not just one, but there are three amazing speakers. And I would like to say thank you very much for delivering such an informative and insightful presentation and discussion. Also, once again, I would like to say thank you very much to for Mr. Ricky Setiawan as the moderator. So then, please allow me to inform a little bit about our webinar today. Once again, this international webinar is a part of a series even called ESCOFEST, which is held by Primary Teacher Education Student Association, and what we have just watched before at the beginning. So, of course, we also still have many other events that are also interesting, such as merchandise, pre-order, and also singing and read a poem competition. For further information about our next event, please look forward at our social media at hmgpksd_UNESA on our official Instagram. All right, allow me to inform it again in Indonesia. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin sekalian, saya informasikan kembali terkait webinar hari ini yang merupakan bagian dari serangkaian acara bernama ESCOFEST, di mana acara ini merupakan sebuah festival besar yang diadakan oleh mahasiswa jurusan Pendidikan Guru Sekolah Dasar Universitas Negeri Surabaya, yang mana telah kita lihat bersama pada video teaser ESCOFEST di pembukaan acara hari ini. Tentunya, selain webinar, kami juga memiliki beberapa rangkaian acara lain, seperti PO merchandise dan juga lomba menyanyi serta lomba baca puisi untuk siswa-siswi SD sederajat. Oleh karena itu, untuk informasi lebih lanjut, dimohon Bapak dan Ibu hadirin sekalian untuk menantikan informasi terbaru dan acara menarik dari kami lainnya pada laman sosial media kami, yakni @hmjpgsd_unesa di Instagram. Well, honorable distinguished speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the flash information. Right now, we would like to remind you to once again to please fill out the evaluation form. That way you can get your e-certificate, and if there are any problems, you can contact us through the number listed on the chat room. Well, okay, on behalf of the committees, once again, I would like to thank to all of the VIPs, speakers, and all of the participants. Also, I would like to say sorry if any mistakes, and then we hope we will see you soon in another event. Enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Indonesia.